Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're doing something a bit different. We're going to distill the catastrophic 2017 North Atlantic hurricane season into a clear, high-yield study guide together. Whether you're studying meteorology, economics, or emergency management, the events of 2017 completely rewrote the record books, and understanding them is absolutely essential.
Here's our syllabus for today. We're going to look at the 2017 setup, the meteorological mechanisms at play, the economic and human toll, and finally, the historical legacy. Kicking things off with Section 1, the 2017 setup, also known as the triple catastrophe.
To really grasp this season, you've got to understand the fuel. 2017 was supercharged by abnormally high sea surface temperatures. Think of warm water literally like high-octane gasoline for tropical cyclones. Now, combine that with weak vertical wind shear, meaning, there weren't those strong upper-level winds to tear the developing storms apart, and you've got a perfect recipe for hyperactivity. The stats are just wild. 17 named storms, 10 consecutive hurricanes, and 6 major hurricanes reaching Category 3 or higher. It was easily one of the most destructive severe weather periods we've ever recorded.
But what's truly terrifying here is the timeline. Just look at these dates: August 17th, August 30th, September 16th. In a span of just one single month, 3 monster systems rapidly succeeded one another. This wasn't just some weird meteorological anomaly. It completely upended regional emergency management. Responders literally had no time to catch their breath.
Moving right along to Section 2, Meteorological Mechanisms. Let's get into the science of destruction.
Okay, if you're taking notes, definitely jot this down. Hurricane Harvey's defining trait was what we call the stall mechanism. Usually, right, a hurricane hits land, loses its fuel source, and kind of fizzles out. But Harvey, it intensified in the Gulf, slammed Texas as a Category 4, and then it just stopped. A weak steering current literally trapped it inland over southeast Texas, and since part of its circulation was still hanging over those warm Gulf waters, it acted like a giant atmospheric pump, just sucking in moisture and dumping it over land. The result was a staggering U.S. record: 51.88 inches of rain in Cedar Bayou. It basically submerged the whole Houston metro area.
Now, contrast that mechanism with Hurricane Irma. Irma was a classic Cape Verde hurricane, but its claim to fame was wind endurance. This absolute powerhouse peaked as a Category 5 and set a worldwide satellite era record by sustaining ferocious 185-mile-per-hour winds for 37 consecutive hours. I mean, just think about the sheer kinetic energy there. It absolutely obliterated structural engineering benchmarks as it tore through the Leeward Islands, bypassed Cuba, and slammed right into Florida.
And that brings us to our third key mechanism. Hurricane Maria showed up just 2 weeks after Irma, but its main threat was rapid intensification. We're talking explosive storm growth over a very, very short window. Maria ballooned from a Category 1 to a Category 5 monster in just 18 hours. 18 hours! It eventually hit peak winds of 175 miles per hour, struck Dominica at full strength, and then made landfall in Puerto Rico as a high-end Category 4, leaving total devastation in its wake.
So the big takeaway for your study guide is how these destructive forces compare side by side. Harvey was primarily a water event from above. It literally drowned regions with unprecedented rainfall. On the flip side, Irma and Maria were massive kinetic wind events. They used catastrophic wind velocity and storm surge to just batter regions, leading to total grid and infrastructure collapse.
Let's shift gears to Section 3, the economic and human toll. We're looking at staggering costs and casualties. Let's start with the financial hit from Harvey. That stall mechanism we just talked about, it caused a jaw-dropping $125 billion in damages. The sheer volume of water dumped over major urban centers tied Harvey with 2005's Hurricane Katrina as the absolute costliest tropical cyclone in U.S. history.
Right on its heels, Irma racked up $77.2 billion in damages. And because of its massive size, plus that crazy 37-hour wind endurance record, the impending threat triggered the largest evacuation in Florida's history. Over 6.5 million people had to pack up and flee to escape the ruin.
Then came Maria, leaving $91.6 billion of destruction behind. Maria's rapid intensification and direct hit on Puerto Rico totally wiped out the island's fragile electrical grid. We're talking about triggering the longest blackout in U.S. history. It also knocked out clean water access, communication networks, and critical medical infrastructure.
When you tally those up and toss in the minor systems from that year, This triple threat pushed the total economic toll of the 2017 season to a mind-boggling $294 billion. I mean, it completely shattered all previous single-year records for U.S. weather disaster costs. It was a massive economic shockwave.
But obviously, the ultimate tragedy here isn't financial. While initial official estimates in Puerto Rico put the death toll for Maria at just 64, comprehensive independent research later uncovered a horrifying reality: over 3,059 deaths. And here's what you really need to remember for your exams. These fatalities were mostly driven by the long-term collapse of power and healthcare access for vulnerable people, not just the initial wins. The infrastructure failure itself was the true killer.
Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 4, Historical Legacy, the aftermath of the triple catastrophe.
Consider this your ultimate cheat sheet. Looking at these storms side by side reveals some really stark contrasts. Notice how the central pressures dip way down into the low 900s for Irma and Maria? That correlates directly with those massive Category 5 wind speeds. Also, check out the difference in primary destructive forces, from Harvey's relentless rainfall to Maria's grid failure, and see how that connects right to the estimated fatalities.
Beyond the raw numbers, the historical legacy we're left with is what experts call a compounded crisis. Because the timing overlaps so closely, island nations in the Caribbean were literally still sifting through the rubble of Irma when they got slammed by Maria. It created this unprecedented logistical nightmare where emergency supplies for the first disaster were either massively delayed or totally destroyed by the second one. Because of this extreme, frankly unprecedented devastation, the World Meteorological Organization took formal action. They officially and permanently retired the names Harvey, Irma, and Maria from the Atlantic hurricane rotation loop. So you'll never hear about another Hurricane Harvey, Irma, or Maria. They've been permanently swapped out on the 6-year rotating list with the names Harold, Idalia, and Margot.
So we'll leave you with this final, absolutely vital thought to ponder. When historical meteorological precedents are entirely shattered and a single season inflicts $294 billion in damages, how can vulnerable regions possibly prepare for overlapping multi-billion-dollar catastrophes? As future leaders, economists, and scientists, that's the ultimate test question you're going to have to solve. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and happy studying.